your guide to the truth. TheNewAmericanMedia.com.
Broadcasting to you live from the Milky Way Galaxy, the solar system, planet Earth, North America, the United States of America, California, Los Angeles to be specific. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Agree to Disagree here on the TNAM radio network, here at the New American Media, because the news always matters. If you haven't had a chance to check out last night's show, yes, we do a Cleveland sports-centric radio show called The Unhappy Hour, since I've never witnessed a professional Cavs, Indians, or Browns championship in my lifetime. But we had NBA consultant Zach Barris. He's on the show. You can go on youtube.com/thenewamericanmedia and check that show out. Also check out our homepage, thenewamericanmedia.com. Do a search for The New American Media on Facebook with spaces in between, like the page. And on Twitter, we're at American_media_. So check out our sports show, and if you go back through our archives, coming up on somewhere around almost 500,000 video views. Not too bad, not too shabby for a soft launch, for a, I'll try not to use that word choice again. Anyhow. Yeah, not too shabby, but if you go back and look through the archive of our content, you'll find a lot of political shows on Agree to Disagree. But you know what? The simple truth of it is, Republican, Democrat, Bush, Obama, the next person, they don't work for us. They just don't work for us. And as long as you keep playing the Republican versus Democrat, right versus left game, they're going to have us. If we're fighting each other, it's distracting from what they're doing. And they don't work for us anymore. Like, it's really a bad system. And you'll find a lot of political shows when I get into all that stuff. However, I really do want Agree to Disagree to be a little more diverse than just politics. I want to get into health. I want to get into spirituality. I want to get into finance. I want to cover a lot of different topics. And today we want to bring in Snohomish Brown. He's going to talk a little bit about acupuncture, Chinese medicine, Tai Chi, herbs, martial arts, cancer treatments, and more. So let's just get right to the show and bring him on board. I like this a lot, varying the subject matter a bit.
Hello.
Snow, it's Brian, and you are live on Agree to Disagree. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Hey, thanks for joining us. I in the intro, I was just telling people that although we've done a lot of political shows, I want to branch out into other areas, and of course, medicine is one of them. And if I've seen a lot of memes out there in the past couple years, and some of my favorite political memes involve just growing a garden and eating organic and saying no to GMO and looking at big pharma differently with the SSRIs and all the school shootings and what drugs they were hooked on. I've seen a lot of freedom in the opportunity of reevaluating our lifestyle and our health and opting out of this current Western healthcare, air quote, system that we have. So I appreciate you joining us today, and I kind of maybe wanted to get your thoughts on that very broad intro that I just discussed there, and then I want to get into your background and get into some specifics.
Well, I appreciate that, Brian. I want to try to touch on as many of those points as possible, but you're right, it is a rather broad intro. First off, to address growing your own garden and growing your own food, I think that's a wonderful idea. I believe in the power of whole foods and their healing ability. And in fact, there's a really great resource that I studied while I was in acupuncture school, called Healing with Whole Foods by Paul Pritchard. I highly recommend it to anyone who thinks that a nutritional-based diet can heal them. There's a lot of truth in that, I believe.
Yeah, it's you grow up and you just do what your parents did, or you do what your friends do. Not a lot of people paid this much attention to health. The difference between butter and margarine, the difference between planting a garden and just getting stuff at a store. But I'll tell you what, when I have a breakfast cereal that's neon green, and I have a dinner that's been frozen in a freezer for about 3.5 years, and then maybe I pull something off of the shelf to make a cookie battered chocolate chip cookie dough mix, you start to realize maybe the things that go into me will have a there will be a repercussion down the road in how I'm feeling based on what I'm putting in. It's like if you put good fuel in, do you get good performance or not? So there's so much to get into, Snow. And originally you and I were trying to do an hour show, but I think we're going to be limited to more closely to an hour or a half hour rather. So I'm thinking maybe in this show is we could kind of discuss you and your background, where you're coming from, to kind of get a feel for the philosophies of the direction you chose with acupuncture, with Eastern medicine, and herbs and martial arts and Tai Chi and all these things. So I guess kind of walk me through, what day did you wake up and say, I'm going to go down this path?
I don't think there was a day where I made that decision. Quite the opposite. In fact, I kind of found as I got into the program more how clearly I was supposed to be there because of how much things sort of intersected for me, like different areas of my life which seemed disconnected in the past all of a sudden found a nexus in Chinese medicine.
What kind of things that you were seeking? Like, what were those things? Because so many people want to believe in some sort of spiritual thing, but they look to the top and they just don't have the faith that they used to. Although they call it something. When people are studying medicine and they've seen someone they love affected by chemotherapy, and you start doing research, and then you're ultimately left wondering, is chemotherapy a good thing or a bad thing for a human being to go through? And there are actually a couple of interesting opinions on it, and I don't know enough to know if one side is completely right or wrong. So, I mean, in which ways were you drawn to this point? What got you into this medicine? What were you participating in that kind of took you there?
Well, in keeping along with your theme, as you mentioned earlier, you mentioned the controversy over the use of SSRIs and how kind of trouble that could get people into if not used appropriately. I believe that we can use Western medicine responsibly enough to, rather than like treating people like guinea pigs, and do what we're good at, which I think is diagnostics and analyzing cultures and figuring out what's in them. These kind of imaging abilities are far well and beyond what I think we could expect, from just other diagnostic tools that we have available, such as, in Chinese medicine we use the tongue and pulse, for instance. I like to say that, we have an herb for that.
A play on we've got an app for that.
Yeah, we got an herb for that.
Nice. Okay, that's good. I've actually been growing more herbs on my porch, trying to get some. It's really not too hard to get a pot, put some dirt in it, and just give it enough water so it doesn't die. It's really not that complicated to get going. Where you can have thyme, you can have oregano, you can have basil, you can have rosemary growing right on your porch or even in your home. It's not complicated to even start with that. We've got an herb for that, so I'm working on that one.
Yeah, well, there are some Chinese herbs that are very popular and a little bit harder to get than that, and they do take some skill and cultivation. As you can imagine, most things that are high in value probably do take some skill in cultivating.
All right, fair. I'll give you that.
So the high value herbs you're probably going to want to get from your Chinese herbalist, your acupuncturist, somebody who's licensed to handle those things.
Well, licensed to handle. Talking about acupuncturist, I like to kind of play on words there because you got to handle all the needles. That's kind of where you're at right now. Is that the safest place to say, Snohomish, that you are a practicing acupuncture specialist who is also working on learning Chinese medicine as well? How do you describe what it is that you're doing?
Well, it's true to say that I am still learning because the license to practice is that the license to learn as well. So in the depths of Chinese medicine, it took 3,000 years to get here, so it's quite a lot to study. But I like to focus on the use of the classics, and also I like to see how I can complement other Western approaches to healing. I certainly value the hard work of our military nurses and techs. I worked alongside a few EMTs as well. I specialize also in massage therapy, and so a lot of the work that I was doing in massage therapy led me to a deeper understanding and a quest for knowledge of the meridian system of the body. These meridians, which number in 12, and there's a few other extra meridians, but these 12 plus at least 2 of the extra meridians make 14, which are very commonly used as acupuncture points along these meridians. And I like to think of them as like guitar strings, kind of. There's a deeper understanding that needs to take place to understand what these meridians are, because no one really knows what they are, but we can guess. And some people have guessed that they might be vessels of blood, or maybe nerve bundles, or something else. Maybe even like interstitial spaces between the cells, or fluid, or water, or something. Who knows? My guess is that they refer to the connective tissue, the myofascia, and that there's a quality to this myofascia connective tissue between the muscles of the cells that not only can conduct electricity, but acts as sort of a network, like a spider's web, really. And you know how, and to use this analogy a little further, how the spider can sit anywhere on the web, and if something lands on the web or touches it, the spider knows exactly where.
You feel the vibration. It like the spider will have 8 legs out, kind of pointing in different directions. And if something goes up on top, it knows from that top right one, that's the direction where it came from. There's a vibration, like a shock wave that emanated from there first. And it's a very precise mechanical system with living biological creatures. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, and that network is similar to our own bodies. Our own bodies work in a similar way. We have some really good studies that show that with the manipulation of needles at certain points, we get hormonal changes in the body, and MRI studies show that there's some neural changes that happen, that it interrupts the stress reaction in response to our day-to-day lives, which can lock us into a pattern of pain, or of disease at least. So, I look at ways of how acupuncture can treat almost anything of a non-emergency related thing. Like if you're bleeding, you got to call 911. Sorry, not if you're acupuncturist.
Don't call your local plumber when there's a tsunami on the way.
Yeah, right.
Like it ain't the right time to be dealing with this. You got to triage, bro. Get to higher ground. Yeah, I get exactly. it. There's a lot of things.
Sometimes, the acupuncture is useful in the ER, for modulating pain. If say, for instance, someone's contraindicated for pain meds for whatever reason. I think that there's a time and place for everything, and I think that as long as you're prepared for dealing with it, and you're responsible to deal with it, you can probably make a difference. As that regards to Chinese medicine, for instance, I've helped people with skin disorders. I've helped them with pain. I've helped people with autoimmune disorders, rheumatoid arthritis, shingles. I help people with depression and insomnia. I've helped people even with supportive care when they've undergone chemotherapy or having surgery to have a tumor removed. This is all very important care. I think it can be a game changer for folks that are suffering from cancer.
Well, some people you don't have to look very far to look and find someone around your family and friends that is a nurse, a doctor, an EMP, somebody working in the field. It's like you don't have to look very far to find a military member around your friends and family. It doesn't take long to look. So I guess some of us are familiar with the concept that it's a couple years to become some sort of nursing assistant, and then a few more years to become a nurse, and then another 4 or 6 or 8 or 10 years to become a practicing neurosurgeon or something like that. What type of licensing process goes through this field of acupuncture, and what stage are you at right now?
Well, it requires a master's degree in usually a 4-year institution. That there's probably, I should know this number since I work in the field, but there aren't that many schools really in the United States, and a lot of them are located in certain large metropolitan areas like San Francisco or New York or California, San Diego. So unless you're like near one of these cities, you're probably not going to hear of one. As opposed to a lot of state schools have medical programs, and we won't see these in state schools. These programs are more privatized in small boutique schools like mine.
Okay.
So, but yeah, it takes the certification requires 4 years, as well as licensing in California. California licensing is a little strange because they have their own testing. And they also produce the most acupuncturists per capita. In fact, I heard a recent statistic lately that LA County has more acupuncturists than MDs practicing.
Whoa. Whoa. That's a real number.
Yeah. Interesting.
Wow. So I mean, not all those people could be. I just couldn't imagine it being the case if there was no value to the process. I've never had acupuncture. I've had chiropractor work, and some people look at acupuncture and chiropractor sometimes similarly, perhaps under Obamacare or whoever your plan used to be with before the massive government takeover of 1/6 of your life and our economy. Well, 100% of your life and 1/6 of our economy. Yeah, a lot of times, and I've had to have physical therapy on a couple of times in my life. Thankfully, I've had great doctors as needed. But when it gets to chiropractor, to massage, to acupuncture, these are things when your body is kind of jacked up. These are very helpful things. But when you start fighting with insurance companies, they never agree to the value of chiropractor. Acupuncture.
Well, they kind of consider all of them to be the same value. In fact, most insurance companies that I've run claims for other of my patients indicate to me that there's a budget allotted to this person's claim that has to be shared amongst the other people billing who are chiropractors or physical therapists.
Okay.
Or I think also osteopaths or something like that. So anybody that's in that category, they only have 10 visits a year, and that's it. So if you're seeing a PT and your acupuncturist, you want to sue them too, then they have to share those 10 visits. Otherwise, the rest is out of pocket.
Yeah. It gets tricky when you're going to the facility to get stretching and range of motion back, but you also need a spinal adjustment or some deep tissue massage and that's a weird part. Maybe in the NBA playoffs, Kyrie Irving had a bad ankle, which led to him having a bad other knee because he was compensating for one injury. He actually. It might have played a role in hurting the other because you're just compensating differently when you have to lift everything with one arm or, and that's a great time to straighten your entire body out. That is a good time to just straighten your spine up, get those muscles all loosened up because you've gotten really, tight and strong on one side and it atrophies on the other side. But yeah, whatever the specific trick of the day is, depending on which healthcare plan you have, it's a battle to try to get things like acupuncture approved, and it's something that I have always been interested in doing, but I haven't gone there yet.
Yeah, it's a funny game, that's for sure.
Yeah, you gotta get a master's in corporate BS and billing to kind of figure out how to do a business these days. It's a hoot. But for someone like me,
I've had to outsource that. There's no way I could handle it.
yeah, man, you just have to. It's why you pay a lawyer. It's like, can you decipher this 1,700-year-old glyph that I found up in the cliffs over in Arizona, please? It's like, I got nothing. I'm looking at pictographs here, and, that looks like an arrow. So, yeah, and then maybe that's the sun. That's the sun. I like the sun. No, it is very bizarre, but my knowledge of acupuncture, it's very limited because I haven't had it. I could talk more about chiropractor. I could talk more about physical therapy and deep tissue massage and that type of thing, because I'm a little more familiar with it. But for someone like me, tell me what acupuncture does. What type of health benefits could a person potentially see? Does it? But does it work for everybody? There's so much I don't know about this.
Well, the way I look at acupuncture is, it's like internal. It's a way of maybe supporting the internal processes that the body is able to heal itself a little bit better. And for certain things that have a sudden onset, in other words, they're fairly recent injuries or something like that, the amount of work that the body needs to do to get itself better is less than if it's something that you've had for years and years and years and never did anything about. I believe that it has a cumulative effect in these chronic pains, like you were talking about with LeBron and his injury.
No. Actually, we can't. Hold on. I got to knock on wood. I'm knocking on the wood right now as I reach over my Cavaliers hat to get it. No, I was talking about Kyrie Irving. We have to keep the good karma going. Yes. Kyrie Irving's injury, where he hurt an ankle and then was compensating on his left knee, and then he got tendonitis over there.
Kyrie is a perfect example of somebody who, they have an injury and then it gets worse because they don't get the right treatment for it. I'm sure that they probably put ice on it, which I wouldn't recommend. I think traction is better. Get the movement and then get the blood flowing. That's why it swells up. You can look this up too. The meth method versus the rice method. There's quite a few articles. A lot of physical therapists are now saying, "Oh, we made a mistake."
Yeah, there actually was something with Kyrie. They were they just kind of couldn't figure out what was going on, and the team was offering their team advice, and then at one point I think he flew down to Florida to get a second opinion. If I recall correctly, I believe that a lot of ice was what they recommended, and then it was the weirdest thing because he came back after like 9 days of rest because the Cavs won. They swept the Hawks and got like a week and a half off. I think he was saying it was like a lot of ice. I'll have to check that out. But when he came back in the first game, when he came back against Golden State, he played almost 4 full quarters. No, he did play 4 full quarters. Fantastic. He looked great. He looked explosive. He looked healthy. And then I believe what happened is he cracked his knee that had now developed a tendonitis with another guy's knee or his leg bone, and he got a broken kneecap. So, trying to figure out exactly chicken and the egg, and did one necessarily cause the second and cause the third? It's a little up in the air. I just know he had surgery yesterday.
Yeah, probably not likely.
Yeah.
So we won't call it conjecture.
But the cumulative effect is interesting to me. We carry crap around, and then it develops in a much worse way. Is that what you were getting at with that?
Basically. The way that the body can heal itself relies on that blood get to the injured area, that circulation happen there, that movement happen there. that whatever is damaged, get removed and replaced by new cells, which need nourishment. So
It's
there's
a
a
lot.
lot of activity happening there at the place of injury.
Yeah, and then sometimes scar tissue, or sometimes you have to dig into the bone to graft back to it. It's interesting. I've been spending a lot more time doing some gardening, and you really have to think about the soil. Are you putting compost in with that? Are you giving it nutrients? Are you giving it enough water? It's this whole complex system, but I mean it's because we never actually have to. It's different. Like weeding our bodies and giving it nourishment. It's just something we don't think of ourselves as the machine that we're taking care of. It's so autonomous. Like it just things just happen and we don't even give it thought. Whereas if we want a nice garden, we got to actually put tens and tens and tens of hours into doing the work of it. Sometimes you just get caught in a pattern in your life, I suppose, and then you become a different person and you're not paying as much attention to your health. I mean, I can think of a lot of people, myself included, who could put themselves into that category. In what way does something like acupuncture help a person trying to kind of recalibrate, if you will?
Recalibrate is a good word. The idea is that the body, when in perfect balance and perfect harmony, will be free of disease. This is sort of a Taoist concept. It's that when we go too far to one direction, too much heat or too much cold, or too much excess or too much deficiency, then that's when we start to experience disease. And so we have different treatment principles in Chinese medicine, where we strengthen that which is deficient, we remove the excess, we warm what's cold, and we cool off what's too hot. These are pretty simple, and we really just try to observe where the imbalance is by comparing and contrasting. So this is where Taoism, the yin and yang, really come into play in a very practical way. So the treatment principles are guided by the diagnosis. We treat according to what we see. If the patient's presenting with something that's related to the functioning of the heart, we have a list of ideas about what the heart is responsible for, and what this amounts to are patterns that have different ways of presenting, which are very distinct from one another. And then we treat according to the pattern. So pattern might be something like, well, this is really popular, what many people who have been to an acupuncturist might recognize as liver qi stagnation or spleen qi deficiency. Stagnation is a kind of excess, and deficiency is obviously something that needs strengthening. So then, we look at possible foods which are good for these particular organs, or we look at points along those channels that go to those particular organs, and we'll strengthen or warm, if it's too cold, with the use of the different techniques that we have.
You know what?
The needles themselves are really good at removing heat. We have moxa, which is useful at warming. So that's one way that we can do that. You were going to say?
No. So they relieve heat. It's almost like letting air out of a tire or something that's overinflated. It's just kind of like letting extra heat out. So it. I think they say, like, if you're having an engine, in certain types of engine problems, you're supposed to turn your heater on so that it takes the heat away from your engine and kicks it into your cab, so that you don't burn it up. Are you saying something like if you put the needle in it, it just vents out the excess heat, something like that?
In some cases, yes. That's one of the techniques. It's useful in, say, if you're going to prick the skin and cause some blood to come out just a little bit. In fact, that's very useful in relieving high fever.
Really? Well, I mean, it's so interesting because there's so many myths and legends and family lore, and well, this is what you do when you're feeling this way. And all of us have had some sort of experience with the medical field, or just anything to take care of us, whether it's dentist or doctor, or whatever the case may be. Like I said earlier in the program, we had planned on doing about an hour show. We're hitting the home stretch here, and I don't want to forget to give you a really good opportunity to kind of explain to people exactly what you're up to, where you can be connected with, because I think the plan is, for the listener that isn't aware, Snohomish and I have been talking about about developing a program over on our Blog Talk sister network, blogtalk.com/The New American Media, and a place where we can maybe have a half hour of conversation once a week, and we can take questions, and callers can join us and all of that stuff. And I think this was step one in that very long process of trying to figure out what is the proper way to do this. So, but as we start wrapping this up, Snohomish, could you kind of tell people where they can stay connected with you until our next show that we do?
Absolutely. If you're on Facebook, I have a Facebook page. It's Snohomish Brown.
That's just hilarious. I'm looking at it. Oh, now he's calling in. Hang on, let's try that again. That's hilarious.
You have reached the voicemail box of...
You gotta love being the producer.
You have reached the voicemail box of...
Are you kidding me? Come on. We have so many hilarious telephone moments. Right when we're getting into a controversial issue. I mean, just that was funny, waiting to drop the call like that. That was pretty funny. Well, we intend on getting him back on.
Wow, I don't know what happened there.
That was hilarious.
Back.
No, welcome to the world of the New American Media. We have so many telephone hijinks occurring from time to time. It was like holding the pause button, the mute button, until right when, sure, you can find me on Facebook. Click. All right, nicely played, NSA. Nicely played.
Yeah. My Facebook page, I could really use some more likes. So if you guys want to come and find me there, Snohomish Brown, LAC is the page.
Spell Snohomish, if you would.
I sure will. It's SNOHOMISH, and LAC stands for Licensed Acupuncturist. So if you put all that together, you should be able to find me. Also, my webpage should be up and running pretty soon, in a week or so, and I'll be hopefully reposting all of the Blog Talk interviews that I want to be doing podcasts with you and doing with New American Media. Definitely would like to let people know that I'm going to be reposting those on my website, and that's also fairly easy to remember. It's my name at .com, so it's SnohomishBrown.com, and I'll spell it one more time for y'all. SNOHOMISH, last name Brown, BROWN.com.
See, and what we did here, this was, and I I kind of like to do things like this. Sometimes you can over-prepare for a show, sometimes you can under-prepare for a show, but at the end of the day, it really is just having a conversation with somebody, and this is, a first conversation on air after a couple of other conversations in person and on telephone, trying to figure out, so how do you want to do this? What if we did this? Well, should we do it on this network or the other network? And you just go, all right, I don't know, but I do know this. I'm all about freedom and liberty. I don't like the direction things are headed across our globe by any stretch of the imagination. I think we should all get prepared for a worst-case scenario, whatever you determine that to be. And I'll tell you what, if you're not focused on your health, you're missing the boat, because that's kind of the most important place to start with preparing your life so that you're ready to handle anything that's thrown at you. And the more you abuse yourself, just the less chance you're going to have. And, you know, in the process, I say, even if we're not ready, Snow, you and I just start. We have our first conversation here, keep it about a half hour, and we intend to do a couple more of these, because in making sure that you're in control of yourself, you need to have options, and you need to have healthcare options. And I think anything alternative health that goes against the big pharmaceutical industrial complex, or whatever you would like to call it, these things are all good things when it comes to freedom and liberty and knowing the truth. That's all I care about. Just tell me the truth and let me make my choice. Don't coerce me into anything. And, you know, I really see alternative health and some of these philosophies you've been studying as a way to kind of wake people up at their core and maybe get them to start digging a little bit deeper on their own. So maybe in the last 25 seconds, Snow, wrap it up for us. What do we need to know?
Well, I really appreciate, you know, you being on your show tonight, and, you know, I totally agree with you. It is about relationships, and it's about conversation. You know, we should speak our truth, speak our mind, and listen to each other, and do our best to accept each other at face value, and ask questions and seek to understand each other when we don't see eye to eye.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate this time.
Oh, sure thing. I mean, the title of our show right now that you just did, it's called Agree to Disagree. It's like, I can have very strong opinions on things, whether it's abortion or whether it's politics or whether religion. We can have very strong disagreements, but I don't know. As far as attacking and wasting our energy at the shiny keys you're jingling in the corner, look what the other hand is doing. You're being distracted from something. And I think the more you look at the corporate profits for really bad companies with garbage ingredients going plummeting into the mud, and the whole organic and non-GMO and health movement is booming right now, I think people are waking up, and it gives me hope. So Snohomish, we'll talk with you again soon. Thank you for episode 1 of what we intend to be a series. My name's Brian Engelman. You're listening to us here on the TNAM Radio Network. Subscribe, youtube.com/The New American Media. I appreciate you, I love you, and I am out.
Hi, everybody. You're listening to Agree to Disagree with Brian Engelman, and this is John B. Wells reminding you that not only is Brian Engelman a cool guy, and not only is the NewAmericanMedia.com a very cool platform, but here's a cool idea for you, too. Are you alone? Not really. Do you like dogs? Do you like cats? You do. Of course you do. Everybody does. One or the other, maybe even both. You know, there are a lot of dogs and cats that are at shelters right now, and if somebody doesn't take them home, they're going to wind up euthanized. That's a nice way of saying they're going to be killed, because there's simply not enough room. I guarantee it, the best dogs and the best cats, the best pets, come from shelters. There's something about dogs and cats, they know. They know where they are. You walk through one of them, and certainly at least one is going to look at you and go, I wish you'd take me home. I'm in hell. Please take me out of here. It'll be the best thing that you ever did for your soul. You'll feel good about it. And not only that, but you have a friend for life. Doesn't matter if you got money, you don't have money. Well, it doesn't make any difference to a dog or cat. All they need is the sound of your voice and maybe even the stroke of your hand, and they're fine. Maybe a little food every once in a while. The sweetest sound that those pets ever hear is your voice. Think it over and adopt a cat or a dog from a local shelter today. I'm telling you, you'll be glad you did.